Breaking news, Disney has confirmed that Magic Key sales will resume on January 10th. On January 10th, guests will once again be able to buy Magic Keys, and not just the Inspire Key, but all the keys. Inspire Key, Believe Key, Enchant, and Imagine. Per the update, it sounds like sales will go much like they have in the recent past. They make an announcement a few days before the reopening date and then start those sales no earlier, per the update, than 9 a.m. Pacific time. So there will be a queue, a hashtag more than an hour queue. And on this occasion, I do think that Disney is going to continue the recent history, the recent trend of limiting those sales of Magic Keys to just a few days. I do not believe that this is going to be an open-ended release, that they are going to limit the number of keys sold. So, right off the bat, those are the basics. Magic Keys are going to be available once again on January 10th, no sooner than 9 a.m. Pacific. They most likely will sell out. As for pricing, by the way, which we didn't get into, there's no indication that prices are going to be going up. My expectation is that the prices that were announced, they just raised the prices for Magic Keys back in October. I think those prices are going to stick. That's $1,649 for Inspire, $1,249 for Believe, $849 for Enchant, and $499 for Imagine. So with all that out of the way, let me just say that I find that this development is kind of surprising considering they haven't been selling Magic Keys for the better part of 6 months or more. The last time they opened up sales was in April of 2023, and that was just for a minute. Believe Keys were sold out that very same day. Enchant and Imagine followed a couple days later, and then finally, months later, I think it was in October, they finally stopped selling Inspire Key. Since then, it has been renewals only. Now, I had made something of a prediction a few months ago prior to the holiday season beginning. I thought Disney might reopen Magic Key sales during the holidays while APs are blocked out, with the idea that they might want to capitalize on some demand there. Some of those APs are going to buy single-day tickets. They might want to take that opportunity to upgrade that ticket to an annual pass, and also at the same time preparing themselves for the obvious slowdown, the reduction in crowds during the slow January and February months. That didn't happen. And since then, I thought, well, maybe Disney doesn't want to be in the Magic Key sales business anymore. It had been, as I mentioned, going on something like 8 months. Maybe Magic Keys were, in fact, a dying thing. But now it looks like it is still a thing, and maybe I was just off by a couple of weeks, because here we are, January 10th, Magic Keys are going back on sale again. And with that, we can also see that perhaps Disney's strategy regarding Magic Keys has become a little bit more apparent. It looks to me like there are two things driving Disney's strategy for selling Magic Keys. First, they're using this method to better distribute when Magic Keys are sold, and therefore when they're renewed and when that revenue hits the books. You recall back when Magic Keys first became available in August of 2021, it was a big shot to the bottom line. But then it was thought it might be difficult for Disney to compete with that sudden influx of revenue in year-over-year sales. And Disney has most definitely been a company that is focused on the optics of what their balance sheet looks like, constantly fighting a struggle with, are they doing well? Are they making money? They don't want to give the appearance of making less money, which is why I thought when they first started reselling them a while back that they were going to do it on a quarterly basis so that those revenues hit the books just prior to their quarterly reports. And while it hasn't been quarterly, it does in fact look like Disney's using the system to better distribute when Magic Keys are sold, better distribute when those keys renew, and also better distribute which keys are sold. If Disney, for example, preferred to have the Inspire Key as their primary key, if they wanted to sell those with more regularity, they would need only restrict how many are sold of the Enchant, Imagine, and Believe keys. Believe sold out that very first day, and that tells me that the Believe key is their least preferred Magic Key, that they want to sell as few of those as possible. And I get it. That's a key that has very nearly the same benefits as the Inspire Key, but for $400 a year less. Meanwhile, after they had sold out of Inspire and Enchant, it took months for them to stop selling the Inspire Key. They finally reached that back in October, which tells me, again, that that's the key that they were trying to sell the most of. That's the key that they want to have their preferred key. So look for more of that on Wednesday. I have every expectation that this iteration of Magic Key sales is going to follow a similar pattern. If it doesn't, watch for that also, because if it doesn't follow a similar pattern, then that means they didn't get what they wanted out of the last iteration, that they have been concocting a new strategy in that time period between April of 23 and now, and that now we're going to find out what that new strategy is. Because I have to be honest, I asked myself that question when I was contemplating why it is that they hadn't been selling keys. And when it appeared like they were getting what they wanted, one of the suggestions that was made to me is that they were trying to work out how to get what they want, work out a new strategy. That time spent, we'll find out on Wednesday what that new strategy is, because even if it isn't the one that we saw in April, whatever it is, it will reveal to us what Disney's plans are. So that's one reason for them to use this strategy. There is a second reason, and that second reason is scarcity, artificial scarcity, or the purposeful limitation of inventory in order to raise prices and or create more demand. Disney's belief is that by limiting sales in such a way, they create more demand for that product than would have otherwise existed. Hold sales back for 3 months or 6 months, and then when they do open them up, like in January, sales pop off. More so, it would be believed, than if they were to sell them freely throughout the year, a little bit at a time. At the same time, you've got current Magic Key holders, people who have not yet had their renewal come up, and some of those key holders might be on the fence about whether or not they do renew. Maybe they don't sell Magic Keys anymore. Maybe the Magic Key program is dying, and it's only those the existing members who are allowed to renew that can keep their key. And suddenly that key holder who is on the fence about whether or not they should renew decides, well, maybe I should, because who knows when I'm ever going to get a chance to buy one again. And let me tell you, it is a real thing for a percentage of Magic Key holders that are loath to pay a single price ticket, to just go and pay it for a ticket at the gate. There are quite a few APs out there who are just not about that life. They love the AP life. That's a real thing. But having said that, I still do have to question the sanity of this strategy. Now, I will admit that even though I do have a degree in finance, it's about as useful today to me than the 2 years of French that I took back in high school. But my feeling is that the longer that you let guests go without giving them the ability to buy a Magic Key, the closer many of those guests are going to get to just giving up entirely. Especially if in the course of that stretch where they're not selling keys, they make decisions like putting Pirates of the Caribbean on Genie Plus or charging $7 for a churro. There is a limit to how much people we're going to take, and they're going to make that choice on a long enough timeline to just simply not buy that Magic Key again. We'll never know because we don't get to look at the books. But again, the answer may lie just in how long they leave those Magic Keys available for purchase starting January 10th. One thing that I'm pretty confident now that we can see that they are indeed wanting to be in the Magic Key business is that they do want to sell Inspire Keys. And that's because the Inspire Key is the guest of those Magic Keys who are most likely to buy food and merch. Which, by the way, I've heard anecdotally that is something that has suffered in the past few months. During the holiday season, they sold significantly less food and merch than they were hoping to. And I think that that's been sort of an ongoing trend for more than a little while, more than just the holiday season. Now, there are a number of reasons for this. It's not just any one reason. One of those could be the fact that Disney keeps trying to stack costs on guests without consideration that there's only so much money that the typical guest can spend, especially when things are as tight as they are these days. That is to say, we'll use Genie Plus as an example, as that's one of the newest paid offerings. The guest who does decide they are going to get that Genie Plus because they don't want to wait and stand by, that they're going to buy that in lieu of buying something else. $30 for Genie Plus instead of buying a t-shirt. They're trading one cost for the other. The result for Disney is a net zero. But the other factor that Disney may or may not have realized at the outset, especially when you talk about per guest spend, it is the Inspire Key who is the most likely to go to the park just to spend money. And I've said this many times before. There is a subset of pass holders who go to the park just so they can try the new food, just so that they can buy the new merch and then just kind of soak up the atmosphere of the park, and that they have very little footprint on what's actually happening inside the park in terms of taking up queue space or taking up space on the streets or whatever. They're almost invisible in the park except for when they're buying food and merch. I know this type of person. I am friends with many of them. I see it on a regular basis every time we go to a food event, or a new season rolls up and there's all kinds of merch and food to buy. Pass holders show up in droves for that stuff. But the reality is that Disney's been going out of their way to keep that guest out of the park. They make it harder and harder for that guest to get into the park, i.e. with the reservation system. So on that topic, I do feel like there's, even now that we've sort of crossed that threshold of determining that Disney does still want to sell Magic Keys. I'm back in the camp that there is hope for even the return of the Dream Key. The lawsuit is settled, so it's just a question of paying out that class action settlement to all of the Dream Key holders out there. I haven't gotten mine yet. Have you? Once that's done, the Dream Key is actually kind of the premium Magic Key holder. They can charge a premium for that pass with no blockout dates at all. They've created that scarcity in removing the 2 weeks for the Inspire Key. They've created more demand for a key that doesn't have any blockout dates. So that creates a new tier of pricing. They've also created demand for a key that doesn't require reservations. And this is one of the more diabolical motives for keeping the reservation system. If they keep at it and they make people hate it more and more, at some point, a percentage of guests are going to go, I will pay anything you ask if you just don't make me make a reservation. What's that number? I don't know. I would say probably $2,000 right now, $2,000 for the Dream Key equivalent. You make a pass that doesn't require reservations, 22, 23, 25, I don't know. I do still see this as a possibility now today, especially if the Magic Key sales stick around for more than a day or two, after January 10th. Stay tuned. And then follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked, on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney, that's fresh with no E, and on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. If you like our show and want to show your support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/FreshBaked. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We love you. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. And Fresh Baked